Hey all, here at OS Reviews, you're watching our video first look and a quick review of the Lenovo Ministation. Just like the yoga book that we recently checked out, it's another product from Lenovo that has a unique, quirky design. This time it's meant as an Android TV box, or as Lenovo was pushing at CES and some other Shenzhen trade shows, a console or a gaming console running on Android that you plug into a TV. It's quite different in terms of how it looks. You can see the design reminds you of something like a cube, and it has these slightly holographic LEDs that spiral all the way inside, and the centerpiece here is completely transparent, that you can slide your finger all the way through. It's hollow. It just has a really different look. In terms of the overall internals and the processing unit, though, it doesn't have the most advanced specifications, at least not on paper. It's called the G66. It has the Rockchip RK3288 processor. It's a quad-core chipset, and it has 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of built-in storage. It also has built-in Wi-Fi, built-in Bluetooth, in addition to an Ethernet port, and of course it also has a Mali T764 for the GPU. So again, these are pretty mid-tier specs for a Android TV box. This thing priced at roughly $75 isn't exactly cheap compared to the competition. Something like the Xiaomi Mi Box, for instance, will arguably give you better value because it has slightly more memory and a slightly faster processor. But Rockchip, this is actually the first Rockchip-based Android TV box that I've seen, so I'm eager to see how it performs in terms of benchmarks as well as day-to-day use. Box here, again, a lot of attention to detail. This is the station itself, and then in this compartment we have the charger, which you can see it's using a proprietary looking charger which has a round base tip, and there's also a bundled HDMI cable for plugging it into a monitor that you get as an extra. This is the user manual that looks like it will explain what some of the features will do, and there's also access to a remote control, and that's it. So the remote here is a lot more basic looking. In fact, it's a lot more traditional looking as well. Just has a very simple layout that has a four-way navigation toggle, OK key, a home key, back key, volume controls, and a menu key for navigating around Android OS, along with a power key. This is a traditional click control set, though, unlike Xiaomi's Mi Box, which has a gesture pad that is capacitive, and you can actually touch it to go left and right or up and down. But this one is just simple click keys. Overall, the size, though, feels pretty comfortable. Inside here, we can put in 2 AAA batteries, and it seems like we can also plug a USB-based adapter onto the Ministation, since this remote, it seems like, will use 2.4G wireless, which is interesting. Taking a look at the design of the Ministation first, it certainly is cutting edge. It seems like something that would fit onto the movie set as a prop for a sci-fi film, and you can see these mirrors which cast a really dazzling look all the way inside it. It's recursive, and as the lights go on, it becomes even more dazzling. On the top, it seems like there is a capacitive sensor that is used for the power key. There's a sticker that we can peel off. Continues this interesting cube pattern, and you simply just tap on it with your finger to turn it on. And otherwise, you just have the logo. The entire thing is built out of a polycarbonate plastic. It has a good weight to it. The back here features the Ethernet port if you don't want to use Wi-Fi, full HDMI port, and USB port for adding accessories like the remote, and also keyboards, flash drives, things like that. There's the charger port, and on the back there's also a few rubber feet that prevents it from sliding around on a surface or a desk, and some ventilation grills on the top, it seems like, in a very reflective internal surface. So again, the design here is definitely different. One thing that I will say, though, is it's a bit larger than your typical TV box as a result of having this strange design. So for instance, here is the Xiaomi Mi Box 3, or the Xiaomi Mi Box 4K. You can see that it's a lot smaller. This is what a typical Android TV box is like. It doesn't necessarily take up that much extra space on a desk, just because the bottom dimensions are about the same. It's just vertical height, so that doesn't really bother me too much. But essentially all the processor and all the hardware is crammed, I believe, into just like one of the sides, and then the rest might just be for decoration purposes. But overall, you get a very interesting look for sure that definitely sets it apart from other TV boxes on the market. This is what the box looks like when it's plugged into power. So looking inside, the LEDs also gently strobe and maybe even change color a little bit as it goes back and forth between the different lighting modes. So it looks very dazzling. There are mirrors, reflective surfaces, which makes it seem like there are infinite number of lights and complex depth going on, but it's really just an illusion. So it's a very interesting, clever design going on, as you can see here. Definitely a very dazzling conversation starter, a very cool gadget just to put on your desk for the lighting alone, even if the performance is just average, not anything that is too out of the ordinary. So you're just paying a bit more of a premium for this really different design and look. Here's what the interface looks like. You can see it's definitely been heavily customized by Lenovo so that it works better as a TV controller with the bundled remote. The first impressions that I had was the remote is actually quite sensitive because it's using 2.4G and not infrared. You actually don't have to be pointing directly at the console for it to work. So I can be pointing at the screen, for instance, and you can see the controls are still fully functional. So the interface in the very top right hand corner, we have our connection status for Wi-Fi, signal strength, and there's also time and date settings. Inside of settings, you can see a pretty typical Android 5.1 layout, and if we go all the way down to something like About Device, we can indeed confirm that it's running on Android version 5.1, as you can see here. So tapping on this a few seconds brings up, again, this lollipop symbol. So as a whole, it seems like navigating through the user interface is actually fairly fluid and responsive. I didn't have too many issues. I do wish, however, that there would be 2 USB ports built onto the console, just because one is already taken up by the remote controller. Going through some of the software, there is the standard Google Play Store where you can download any applications, games, as well as media streaming software such as Netflix, for instance. The browser here is actually Chrome, so they've installed Chrome right out of the box. It's not the standard WebKit-based browser that we're used to seeing on Android. And so you can actually open up multiple tabs. You can sync it by signing in with your account information, and all your bookmarks will be imported, and it actually works pretty well. Web browsing performance is adequate. It will load up pages like the New York Times without any problems, so the 2 gigs of RAM and quad-core chipset is more than enough for handling basic web browsing, even if you have 3 or 4 tabs open in Chrome. With that being said, the Wi-Fi reception is a little bit weak on this particular console. We only have about 2 to 3 bars of reception. Next, we can take a look at some of their other programs on here. There's video, which is basically just a blank page, which you have to populate yourself with your favorite applications. And on the bottom, there are also other kind of icons for contacts, also music, and utilities, but you can see everything is blank, so you would have to customize it yourself. The center icon here is for all your applications, so you can see these are some of the preloaded apps. There's definitely a few non-standard programs that Lenovo has pre-included, like Kodi is built right on in, which is pretty useful, and a live TV streaming TV service is also built on in. Other utility tools and Google services are pretty typical. Alright, so again, tapping on the All Apps tab here also takes you to the exact same page where I can also load up some of these other services. And although some of the icons may look a little different, they're actually just standard Google services like Gmail. It's just the logo here has been slightly changed. Over here, KD Player is just Kodi, so it launches into this Kodi version. You can see it shows the time on the top, and then you can, of course, plug and play thumb drives, hard drives, and it will try to read files off of your devices that are plugged into the console. And again, the animations here are really smooth and responsive. Here I can look up specific TV shows, music videos, content if I have it loaded onto the system's memory. And there's also web-specific programs that I can load on. So for instance, add-ons you saw here that included things like games, in addition to streaming services that Kodi is able to find. The output resolution by default is at 1080p, but I can also play back 4K content without any issues. Same thing goes with 3D stereographic videos, both on YouTube and on the memory itself that you may want to load up. There's also a tab for cleaning up the RAM, so if you want to close any programs that are running behind the scenes, you simply tap on this and it will reflow. Here we have a file manager, which is pretty useful. This is the kind of live streaming TV service, Film on TV, that I was talking about. Again, you do need to be connected to the internet, and afterwards it can find some local as well as national films and channel stations that you can browse through and watch. So let's exit out of that. It works decently. Again, the TV box doesn't really have any problems playing back video files encoded up to 4K resolution, so no problems there as far as watching back HD content. And we do have Netflix in addition to Showbox built right on in, as you can see down below. When it comes to playing back some basic games, it does work. Since the system has a Bluetooth, you can actually connect a Bluetooth controller for easier use. And for playing back some light titles, things like Asphalt 8, it runs fairly well. You have to wait for a few seconds longer compared to a Snapdragon processor. Overall, as far as a middle end, middle of the road Android TV box, it performs decently. You'll notice some occasional drop frames if you have too many programs open in the background, which is why it's important to hit the clean memory button every once in a while. To be completely honest, I was expecting slightly better performance in the gaming regard, just because Rockchip, is a manufacturer, SoC company that typically, powers more of the gaming emulator consoles, such as the GPD XD series, and so you would think that they have a leg up compared to MediaTek when it comes to optimizing gameplay performance, and it does pretty well. It's not a bad processor at all, but at the same time, it still isn't quite as powerful as something like a Snapdragon, especially a flagship Snapdragon that you would find on a higher-end smartphone. But all in all, for a TV box, I would say it's more than sufficient. So that's our video review of the Lenovo Ministation. Overall, as far as Android TV boxes and Android gaming consoles go, it's not bad. The interface itself is relatively clean, easy to use with the remote, and for general tasks like web browsing and video streaming, it handles without any problems. However, for more intensive gaming, it does still have a little bit of lag, which is somewhat of a con, considering that this was advertised, at least initially, more as a gaming console than as a traditional TV box. Still, you can download any of the titles that you would want from the Play Store, and at this price, it is a little bit more expensive than competitors, but you are mostly paying for this unique, dazzling design. So overall, decent performance, not anything out of the ordinary, but it's bolstered by a really striking and unique design. So if you like what you see here and you're willing to shell out a little bit of an extra for getting something that also is a cool conversation starter, something to put on a desk or onto a table, and people will definitely ask you questions about it, then it's not a bad choice. But if you're expecting something that will play back the most demanding titles without any stuttering or lag, there are better options available. And at this price, again, you are paying a slight premium for getting this particular look. So you can check out more details about the Lenovo Ministation in our official written review. But for now, this has been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.